practice innovative volunteerism. Away, Eziko. Rise up, you and me are the solution to these challenges. Oh yeah, rise up, you and me are the solution to these challenges. Oh yeah, innovative and volunteerism, food security and youth unemployment, climate actions and selfless solutions. These are things that we need to engage for. When I lift up my eyes and see people still living in affliction, mothers and children go to bed without food on their table, youth unemployment the biggest statistic from headlines every in Africa, climate change impact us in everywhere, whether it's flood or drought.
Welcome to the Mindset Spot. And when it is Friday, it is time to discuss solutions that can transform the African continent. The reality of the challenges we face are dotted across the entire continent: food insecurity, energy poverty, environmental degradation, and the list goes on. And on top of this, the changing climate that is turbocharging not only the events we're seeing across the entire world. We see droughts plaguing the Horn of Africa, plunging over 22 million African citizens into suffering. This means every solution matters, and we hold a piece of the solution to these challenges. Today, we are going to dissect and discuss how we can be able to leverage smart solutions to build Africa, to transform Africa as we ensure that no one is left behind. And I'm going to be joined today by someone who is an entrepreneur, who is an author, who is a Pan-Africanist, and who is a business coach and also a motivational speaker. He's going to dissect and give from his experience how after 20 years, he's built businesses in 2 different continents, how he finally decided to use his skills and talents to drive a narrative that inspires and also provides solutions to those who need it most in the African continent. So join me in welcoming Henry Nyakurundi. Henry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me, and thanks for the invite.
Excellent. Yeah, I honestly speaking, when somebody looks at what you are doing and having lived in 2 continents, of course, an African, but studied in the United States and have built businesses, what would you say to somebody who is sitting today saying, oh, wow, I want to leave the continent. I want to go and make it elsewhere? From your experience, what would you tell someone? And before that, maybe you just tell our viewers who you are in your own words.
No, sure. I'm an African. I'm from Rwanda. Grew up in Burundi. I'm also a returnee, diaspora returnee. As I come from a generation of African believing that the Western world was much better. Then I lived there and realized, they also have huge problem. So decided to come back on the continent about 9 years ago. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a family man. I got 3 kids. I'm married with 3 kids. So yeah, I'm all those things. But as you mentioned, I'm a Pan-African. And I'm, that's pretty much it. It's all this combined. And I'm a dreamer. I have this vision of Africa, and I hope it will achieve. I'll see it before I pass away. That's really what my dream is. To see this Africa that stand on the same level with everybody else. That's really what I'm hoping to see before I pass away.
I like what you've said, Henry, and you've said something that I think everybody needs to understand: being a dreamer. And being a dreamer is not just a word. It's about doing something that can then realize that dream. And you've said very clearly that we cannot build the future of Africa with foreign technology, using Western books to tell our history to our kids and not promoting our local talents to develop this great continent. What do you mean by that?
You know, what I've learned coming back on the continent is that we, and we have this perception that everything from the West is great and everything local is just not good. And I'm simplifying, but that's pretty much the perception and the mindset that we have on the continent. I was very shocked because when I came back developing a technology to solve key problems. And I really thought I was going to be supported as an innovator, local innovator, understanding the ecosystem. And what I find out, and this is not a local problem, this is a continental problem. Everywhere I've traveled, I mean, we operate in multiple countries, but I've traveled all over Africa, and we looking for validation from the West. We copying everything from the West. We just haven't find our voice. We haven't find our places, and I think it's a mindset issue. It's a lack of confidence, and to be honest, we just have a complex as African compared to the rest of the world, especially the West, and that's truly a big problem because we're not looking inward to solve our problem, and that's where we are today. So, and until we change that mindset, then nothing will change, really.
Until we change that mindset, nothing will change. I mean, continue. I mean, that is a big point that we will get back to it. Just continue.
Yeah. This is the source of our problem because, to solve a problem, you got to get to the root of a problem. The problem is not that we don't have talent. Talent is universal. We have plenty of talent on the continent. The problem is that we don't have money. There's plenty of money. The diaspora send billions and billions of dollars every year. They send more money than foreign aids. So
correct.
The real problem is our mindset. Until we change our mindset, especially on the leadership level, then that's when Africa will rise up. Until then, not much will happen.
I think before we go back to that mindset aspect, because I think that is really going to form the cruise of our discussion, I just want our viewers to see the kind of work you do so that at least when we come back, you can then explain how have you managed to do that on your own, given the fact that this mindset needs to be changed. And I would just like that viewers just take a look at this. It's 5 minutes.
To start a project you might think it's impossible to achieve. Don't worry about the problems or the challenges you can encounter. Focus on getting your products, your solution out there. Look at it step by step. So don't be scared of thinking big. Just get started.
On his frequent travels between Burundi and Rwanda in East Africa, entrepreneur Henry Nyakarundi says he noticed people struggling to find anywhere to charge their phones.
Pretty much what drives me the most is solving problems. I love a good challenge. And that's what the initial ARED journey started. And from there was, what problem should I solve? And the biggest challenge I've seen is, as I say, access to energy and access to connectivity. We have 60% of the population that don't have access to electricity at home. So even if they have a phone, they can't charge their phone, right? So the problem is massive.
Henry's idea was to design a smart mobile kiosk, which he says can charge 30 phones at one time using solar energy, as well as providing Wi-Fi access.
We have partners in Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Ethiopia, Uganda, and of course in Rwanda. We have around 248 kiosks across those 4 markets, and we should have around 5,000 to 6,000 this year. We currently signed an MOU with one of the largest fintech company for Ethiopia, for example, for 15,000 kiosks in the next 3 years, called Belcash. This is where it all started, 2013, about 9 years ago. We had like 2 staff. We're doing mostly research and development. Before we even launched the first product, it took about 6 years for the first product to actually get into markets. It was a very, very humble beginning, and we're just really working hard and to get the product going, to get the solution going. So it's really good to look back and realize how far we've been.
Henry says investing in renewable energy solutions was particularly important to him.
The green revolution for me is the future. You can no longer build a business anymore if you don't add a sustainable for the environment component to your business. It initially started as a phone charging kiosk, and then gradually it moved into phone charging with Wi-Fi connectivity. And then the last stage now is we're trying to build a storage and computation power. All right, so here we have where we put the battery, the controller system of the battery, and the mini server. And then on these containers, we have the light system to work at night for the kiosk operator to be able to operate the kiosk at night. And then the top, we have the solar panels that charge all the battery system.
Solar charging isn't new in Rwanda or in other countries in Africa. It's this little piece of hardware, the mini server, which allows Henry's kiosk to become an important digital resource. The server uses something called edge technology, which brings the internet closer to the user.
The goal is to build a one-stop shop kiosk that provides digital services and digital application in one location. So we provide Wi-Fi services, mobile money, airtime. We also provide government services, electricity sale. So that's all the range of services that our kiosks provide at any given time. COVID kind of changed everything. Now we're digitizing all services. You hear about educational being digitized, health being digitized. Unfortunately, access to those applications is still a big problem. So we want to really focus to improve our technology for low-income people and not just facilitate, but make that access almost free.
For Henry, doing business is all about overcoming challenges.
When I started ARED, there was no smartphone in the market. That was in 2009, right? We evolved. And that's the key thing to understand about business. You have to evolve. You have to learn from your customer. Most of the idea came from our customer. It didn't come from me. Customer come, they see the kiosk and they say, hey, why you don't have this? Why you don't have that? Okay, interesting.
Across East Africa, locally designed innovations like these are helping to boost local industry, from the region's first manufacturer of prescription eyeglasses to electric motorbike taxis assembled in Kenya. Sharp ideas and ambition are driving the continent forward.
Wow. Henry, I mean, this is marvelous, and congratulations for this excellent work, which then takes us now to what Tande Godlove Ngumi is saying here. He say, I pray we change our mindset. We got all what it takes. That actually aligns with what you are doing, and you've said things there that you've said. We need to evolve. We need to listen to the customer. We need to be open-minded, and that is now form the core of the mindset. So, what would you say to those who complain all the time, rather than starting small, as you've explained, while thinking big, while dreaming big? And how can we break this and from the experiences you are learning as you drive these clean technology solutions across the continent?
So sorry, Richard, can you repeat the question?
So the question is that you have seen firsthand that solutions can make a difference in people's lives from you are driving this, but the uptake of this needs an attitude of self-belief, and that is actually what can drive mindset change. What do you think practically can be done to start to change the mindsets of Africans to know that they can make it as you are making it, as you are decentralizing clean energy solutions to charge phones? and taking solutions to the doorsteps of people. What is the magic that can bring a mindset change for everyone to start taking responsibility and doing this?
No, I mean, we have to lead by examples, right? We can't keep talking about stuff, right? We can't keep sitting. I remember, funny story. I used to complain a lot before I moved back on the continent. I used to be like, oh, look, you watch the news. You say, look at this, look at that. Da, 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 da. But then at some point you have to realize you're just talking, or you meet with friends and you start talking about your country or the continent. Oh, look at what's doing. But if you're not participating, you're just a spectator. So as a spectator, you should not be talking about anything. I mean, that's my view. So I got tired of being a spectator, and I wanted to participate in solving the problem that I believed could be solved by me. Because obviously I'm a small me. I can't solve everything. But I want to be like, okay, if I'm complaining so much, what can I do to contribute my little part to solve a small problem? But you got to lead by example, because the youth is always looking at, who's doing what. If this guy can do it, I can do it too. He has nothing better than me. So you have to lead by example, and you have to inspire the next generation by doing yourself what you believe can be done with your skill set. So those are things we have to do, and that's how you change narrative. That's how you change the perception. That's how you change mindset, because the youth in Africa, all they see is in technology and all that. They see what Western Facebook billionaires, those are the story that they get sold every day. So they need to see a more African narrative. So that I think those are the key thing that needs to be done. As an individual, stop complaining, like you said, and start doing. If you're not going to do anything, don't talk about anything.
Wonderful.
And there's a lot of ways you can contribute. You don't necessarily have to start a business. You can invest in solutions in Africa. That's another thing, and maybe we can talk about it, but there's huge opportunity in that space for looking for African companies to invest in, from the diaspora. Because now the technology, the internet has made this world so small. You can do pretty much anything you want remotely, so that's another aspect I believe will be a game changer for the continent.
Wonderful. Actually, Selu Makati says, Henry, I'm inspired by your work. Changing our mindset is very much key to our independence in Africa.
Absolutely.
Zuba says he's watching from Nigeria. And then there is Alusin Kamara, who's watching from Sierra Leone. Say, awesome, Henry. And
thank you. Thank you very much.
Say, brilliant. So you see, what you are saying is resonating in these young people. And most of them have not heard the narrative sometimes that actually is talking about truth to reality. What do you think we need to do as a continent to start debunking these myths? Of course, you've explained this. We need to start believing in ourselves and doing what we can do. And you must not be in business to be able to invest in Africa. You can contribute to actors like already yourself. So what is holding Africans from taking this part?
Unfortunately, it's our leadership. Our leadership is our biggest challenge and biggest problem. Because again, I posted something 2 days ago. We are our leaders, and I'm generalizing, of course, because 54 countries, different leaders. Some leaders are doing good, but in general, our leaders are doing poorly. We are begging continent. When COVID happened, I was amazed by how we begging for vaccine, because we don't have any vaccine manufacturing, and we're getting upset with the West that is not donating vaccine. When the war in Ukraine started, we begging for cereals, and yet we have 60% of arable land sitting not being utilized. Global warming, we begging for money, because for whatever reason we are begging continent on our leader level. And unfortunately, as an individual, there's not much you can do. You have to organize yourself. And as I said, every country is different, but we need to start this begging business. There's so much talent on the continent that can solve 99% of our problem, from global warming, agricultural sector, and all those things. But yet we don't tap into that talent. And that's why you see talent ending up in the West and blossoming in the West. we are the worst continent when it comes to nurturing talents, right? I can't tell you how many times I go to different organization and all that, and the consultants come from the West. We looking for advice from the West. But as individual, there's a lot we can do, right? It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much resources you have. You can do certain things on the individual level, right? And I always give examples. For example, if you're building your home, use green technology. You can power your house with solar technology or biogas. All these solutions already exist. I think the global warming, I know the global warming is going to be the biggest challenge around the world, but even bigger for Africans. And we're going to see new wars. We're going to see new fighting because of this problem. And if you don't adopt certain things now, for example, we grow tomatoes and all on our garden. You're going to have to start growing your own food. People don't talk about that, but that's going to be the future. You cannot depend on farming and markets and all those things, because I've in Rwanda alone, I've seen cost of produce, mango alone. I love mangoes. I've tripled in less than a year. So all those things, you have to take preemptive action. You can't just be a victim.
Absolutely.
You can't sit around and you have access to all this information and then play the victim game. That's part of mindset. We got to stop this victimizing game that we play. We got to prepare ourselves. I know African, we love having a piece of land. Most of us have a small piece of land. I don't care how low, from the lowest low to the highest, we love land. Start utilizing your land. Start trying to build mansion and try to chase the money and all. Now, trying to be more productive. Well, I would say productive, but trying to be more reflective of the reality of the future. Or it's going to be really challenging for you in the next future. But those are the key things I think.
Absolutely.
We need to change.
I think Henry, you are hitting the nail on top, as they say. And David Luganda says that many youth have gone to Europe to study, and they came back thinking of working for big organizations, whether it's World Bank, it's UN. He said, "What motivated you to come back to Rwanda and start up your company?"
Yeah, I'm not the employee type. I've tried jobs when I was younger, and I kept getting fired. So I have authority issues. Not anymore, because I'm older now. But back in the days, you couldn't tell me anything. So, but that varies per personality, right? Some people, there's nothing wrong working for the World Bank or the UN. There's nothing wrong from being an entrepreneur and all. But at the same time, what the problem is you need to contribute to this development of Africa. And there's different ways to contribute. People think you have to be an entrepreneur to contribute. No, you don't have to be an entrepreneur, but you can invest, right? If you look at a project, and now you can invest in groups. You can, you have a group of people, let's say 20, 30 people, put $500, $100 together to invest in a very innovative technology. It's called crowd investing. Those are the things that needs to be done. People think you need to be an entrepreneur. No, you don't. So there's nothing wrong to work with those organizations, as long as you also contribute on the side, or you help push, an African narrative within those ecosystems, because that's also, and we can talk about it for days, but that's also one of the biggest problems with those organizations. They're not structured to support local African talent. That's not really their real mandates, and those are the things that can be done. But there's a lot of ways to support the narrative Henry, of Africa.
You said there are a lot of ways to support, which I think that is very true. You are supporting the development of the continent, decentralized clean energy solutions, just very simple solutions that are helping mothers, communities to charge their phone. That's your contribution that you are touching live. One of the things that you have said that I think is very, very important is that we must participate in the development of the continent. We must participate and become solution providers, not complainers in chief. And you've also said something that I think is very, very important here, which is that we have to leverage on what we have, leverage on groups. And Africa is pretty much a very communal society. In every community, people come together using different approaches, whether it is cooperatives to save, whether it is coming together to use their social capital to contribute to support one another. That's the fabric. And that's what I've argued to many people, that the uniqueness of Africa is in her structural setup with institutions that are not found anywhere in the world. Why are we not using this? Because the reality is that institutions from elsewhere will function the way they were formed. But why don't we use our own institution? You've just mentioned crowdfunding here, which to me, I see the idea originated from the continent, because as I grew up, I saw my mother aligning with other women in our village to raise little money to buy our school books and even buy benches in churches and all that. So that spirit of communal come together. So I am bringing this up because David Luganda is actually an innovative volunteerism actor in Uganda, and they are using the communal cooperatives called Village Savings and Loan Associations, and they're decentralizing simple solar dryers to mothers and fathers in communities to dry their vegetables. But so my question to you is not necessarily a question, but it's what you said that has really touched the core on this, is we need to leverage what we have and start leveraging on groups. Why are our young Africans especially not thinking this way? What is the problem?
Well, so there's a lot of initiative, but it's very fragmented and very small and micro across Africa. You mentioned those co-op groups. Those exist pretty much anywhere in Africa. I was specifically talking about crowd investing. So one of the biggest problem with entrepreneurship for African entrepreneur is raising capital. What you see is we talk about how Africa last year raised $5 billion, that which doubled from the year before. The problem is the concentration of most of that money goes to a few. And there's not a democratization of access to funding, which is really what the main problem we need to solve. And I truly believe crowd investing can solve that. But what you see is a lot of small project across Africa trying to solve, but you don't see big projects, several big projects that can serve multiple countries or a continent to solve that problem. And the why is very simple. Those who are working on those solutions don't have the resources to promote it on the continental level. So it's the chicken and egg story, right? What comes first? You need money to grow something, right? I always tell people, they always tell small companies, oh no, don't focus on fundraising, focus on product, marketplace, and all that. It is true, but then you hear companies in the West raising millions and millions of dollars with no revenue, no nothing. So there is these discrepancies in messaging, but we need they need resources to scale. But I think what the African Bank or the African Union can do, and that's a proposal we worked on 2 years ago, but it didn't go anywhere, is to put together a platform where the 30 plus million diaspora can invest in African projects that are run by African. This is it's not that complicated to do. It's just technology and marketing, to market and to because I meet a lot of diaspora. Man, I want to invest. I got a few $1,000s. I want to invest, but I don't know what project. I have to trust that this project has been vetted, has been checked on, that is legit. I want a vehicle, a platform that can help me put that money and that did the research and have selected the right company. I truly believe whoever's going to work on this project will be highly successful.
Wonderful. No, that's very beautifully said, Henry. I think you've touched something that I would just like to add a perspective to it and see what you think. But before that, let's read this comment from Ibrahim Bashir. He's an innovative volunteerism actor in Nigeria. He says, most of us talks about advanced tech when simple solutions are what we needed to solve problems we face in Africa. How did you break down your idea of the mobile kiosk and how will it make money?
Yeah, so the mobile kiosk went to a lot of iteration, just like any business. The initial idea that I had was in '09. So after the crisis of '08, I was in the US. I had a business then. I was in logistic and real estate. And after the crisis of '08, I decided it was time for me to do a project for Africa. So I was looking for different projects. And at that time in '09, till 2013, there was only feature phone, number one. Number two, the biggest challenge was energy, which is still a challenge, but phone charging was the area that was the biggest challenge. So I came up with this concept of solar kiosks just to charge phone. But it took me 3-4 years to develop the technology. I moved back here in 2013. But by that time, the market had changed. This is the beauty of technology. Things move very fast. Smartphone was growing and all those things. And the initial idea was for me to deploy kiosk and charge people on phone charging. I was going to charge them 10 cents per charge. And I quickly realized that's not going to be a sustainable business model. So I pivoted, and within that pivot, smartphone was growing and people were looking for smart ways to connect. And so we started with just basic Wi-Fi, but we realized Wi-Fi depend a lot on internet connectivity speed of that market. So we said, why not finding a way to localize application on a mini server and distribute it via Wi-Fi? So we were the first company to do that. Well, among the first, because there was another one in Kenya also, but it was different to what we were doing. So, and that's what it evolved. So the kiosk didn't evolve since then, except the design and all. But the big evolution was this edge technology that CNN talked about. That's really actually the core of our business now. So how do we make money? We're a technology provider. We provide technology to partners, and they implement the solution on the ground. So that's how we make money. We don't implement solutions anymore like we used to.
Excellent, excellent, wonderful. I think we're half an hour up, then we need to take a break. And when we come back, I am going to dig down on these aspects of that you've mentioned. There are three aspects. First of all, there is fragmentation, and there is that attitude of working alone in the continent, which is a big problem. And the second aspect is that of raising money, but at the same time, also understanding that if you give somebody money who is passionless, that money will be eaten and nothing will happen. When we come back, we're going to discuss these particular aspects. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Let's embrace innovative volunteerism.
Today is a beautiful day in a continent that have got nearly everything, but the changing climate is already redefining the contours of this continent. From droughts in the Sahel to the Horn of Africa, to floods manifested through cyclones that have impacted millions. But the African continent, under the changing climate, tells us one thing, that Africa is a continent that is too rich to be poor.
Human capital outweighs financial capital. It outweighs material wealth. With human capital, you can be able to get material wealth. But with material wealth, you cannot be able to get human capital. Your skills, your dedication and passion cannot be bought with money. The inspiration and the passion is what is needed to be able to drive this transformational change. I carry with it everywhere I go that to be able to find your purpose, it doesn't need money, it needs passion. To be able to find your purpose,
It doesn't need money, it needs inspiration. To be able to find your purpose, it doesn't need money, it needs determination. And sometimes taking risk, because the biggest risk is not taking risk. Each and every day, I've got 24 hours. Every minute, it takes 60 seconds for a minute and 60 minutes for an hour. So each and every one of us here have 31 million seconds and above. That means we are all millionaires here. You're all millionaires. What that tells you is that you are in control of your time. You can utilize your time to volunteer for something useful. You can utilize your time to do things that are retrogressive. But how you use your time determines how you can be able to be successful. And that is the essence of innovative volunteerism, injecting your skills along the entire agro value chain, utilizing your talents, utilizing your initiative to be able to bridge gaps, but moving towards a direction that can be able to lift others from the bottom of the pyramid. This is the essence of innovative volunteerism. And this calls for a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift that is premised on collectivism, not individualism. It's a paradigm shift that is premised on selflessness, not selfishness. It's a paradigm shift that is premised on hopefulness, not hopelessness. It's a paradigm shift that is premised on complementarity, not silo actions. A paradigm shift that is premised on commitment, not disloyalty. A paradigm shift that is premised on leveraging on our skills, our talents, existing initiatives, the energy, especially of the youth, the commitment and passion, because this represents human capital, which is priceless. It outweighs financial capital, and leveraging on this can truly drive transformational change for people and planet. These are the essence of innovative volunteerism. Innovative volunteerism can bring the continent together and tap into each and every one's skill, because the power of innovative volunteerism is what can make Africa work. This is the true genius.
And we are right back. And the discussion today is how to leverage smart solutions to drive transformational development in Africa under the changing climate. And we have an amazing guest, Henry. Henry, before we went on break, we are talking about how do we inspire our young people to leverage their passion and become purpose-driven? Because the truth is this: one will never have enough money to start, but you need to start, like you rightly said, to showcase something so that people can invest in it. Because investment is also about trust. Investment is about seeing what one is doing. But sometimes the young people want to start big when they have never even run anything small. Do you think that there is a wrong narrative that is being fed into our young people?
No, of course, yeah. I mean, it's not even the wrong narrative. It's not a reality type of narrative, you know. I mean, thinking big is okay, but again, this is an idea that comes from the West that we trying to push here in Africa. There's nothing wrong, but you know, I want to tweak a little bit the answer, but I think the idea I always tell the youth, especially those who, because I do a lot of coaching and speaking engagement with young people, and the challenge they always say is, well, I don't have anything. I don't have any resources. Those who have resources come from money and all that. They don't need to be in that conversation because they have resources. But though, if you have no resources, you're students with little money, you can't find a job and all. Number one, what you need to do is organize yourself, right? Find at least 5, 10 people, like-minded people that you know, you have to make sure they're like-minded because they want to change their future and all. Organize yourself, right? Second thing is trying to find a field you want to focus on. The number one field I tell people all the time is agricultural sector. I don't care. Even though I'm not, this is the sector you need to be on. That's the future. We have a population that's going to double in the next 20, 30 years. Food scarcity is becoming already a problem. So you'll never go wrong. Organize yourself, 5, 10 people. Find yourself, get into agricultural sector. And then in agriculture, it's such a broad spectrum. There's a lot of things you can do that. Right? If you don't have money for land, become a broker with your group. So you're matching farmers with buyers. and then you earn a commission. You facilitate that movement, right? There's a lot of ways, but that's why I tell the youth, right? There's a lot of things you can do with limited resources. But when you come in groups, you have a lot of power, where the lack of money as an individual can be compensated with the group level. And that's why I tell people all the time. So those are the things I will tell. Stop, and then you can grow from there. When you achieve one step, then you can build, and then you can go as high as you want, because not everybody wants to build a large corporation, because young people don't understand. And I learned that the hard way. The bigger your organization is, the more stress, the more challenges come. People think money solves everything. It's not true. I've built successful businesses before, and I can tell you, the more money you make, the more problem you get. That's a fact. Right? So sometimes you don't want to deal with that stuff. You just want to have enough money to feed your family, pay school fees and all that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
This is a very important point you are bringing up here. You brought up 3 points. First of all, the young people need to get organized. And there is an issue of trust. Even where there are resources that can only be accessed through groups, you see those resources idling because people don't want to come together. So there is a trust issue, which is a big problem, especially among young people as compared to our parents. The second aspect you've said is they don't want to tap opportunities. And Paul Kevin just said something here, that you can even be a clean consumer, and that is contribution to Africa's development. Alucine Kamara from Freetown is saying that productive is the right word you are using, Henry. I see Timothy Shitagwa here saying that amazing simple solutions can solve most of our African challenges. We must change our mindset moving forward. And I see Lucas saying, here, brother, preach. So preach, Henry, you are striking the core. And I see Tim Neng joining in, saying you are late. Yeah, well, you are late, but now you are still getting it. And I see Rosemary Wanger, yes, clapping. Thank you very much for all of you who have tuned in. So now I think let's shift the discussion a little bit, which I think from the perspective of what you are doing, we have over 620 million Africans who are energy impoverished. We know the solution, but as a continent, we are not acting. What is holding us back?
I mean, there's so many issues, and I think we tap into some of that issue. For a lot of things. So I'll give you another statistic. Out of all the solar energy companies across Africa trying to solve this problem, only 3% are run by Africans. So all that data already is a big issue, right? So again, and I don't want to knock, because sometimes when I talk, people think I have a problem with Western solution or companies trying to do business with Africa or in Africa. That's not the point. The point is only African can solve African problem. Only European can solve European problem. You don't see African getting involved into this problem between Ukraine and the East and West in Europe, because that's not a problem we can understand. This is a European problem. Only American can solve their problem, and so on and so forth. But only in Africa we see all this, and it's not just Western Asia, also China coming in and trying to solve. But to answer your question, there's a lot of layer to this, right? The main, and it's been 640 million for the last 10 years, by the way, since I've moved to Africa. So that number hasn't changed a bit, which is amazing to me also, with all the billions and billions. I mean, we have to understand there's been billions and billions of dollars been spent on this energy crisis in Africa. And yet the percentage has not changed a bit. So allocation of this money is a big problem. We're not allocating the money to the right people. We're not tapping into local talent. That's also a huge problem, and it's not just in energy and agriculture, right? We have a top to bottom approach of this problem in Africa, and we need to have a bottom up approach to this problem. And that's really the core of this issue, right? We're bringing money, and most of them are very expensive solution. I'll give you one of the biggest challenge with home solar system, pay-as-you-go solution, which is the most popular energy solution right now in Africa. Well, pay-as-you-go is actually a loan that we give to low-income people to get access to electricity. And a lot of time, they have to they have 2 years to pay, first of all. But the battery, after 2-3 years, have to be replaced. So that loan really technically never ends. So what has been, there's a research that came out where we actually crippling the people into this loan program that they can't even afford it. So all this issue, again, is the top to bottom approach. We are not listening to those customers. We are not listening, and there's local people trying to solve this energy in a different way. So our leaders are not listening to the right people. And until then, that data, that 60% of the population not being access to energy will not change anytime soon. Again,
so do you think, yeah, that's a very good point you've made. Do you think the problem is also that of narrative? Because the truth is that if you do not control your narrative and prefer solutions, that space will be occupied. The narrative is about problems in the continent most of the time, not about solutions. And that's why this show is important, because here you are preferring solutions and explaining how the challenges can be solved, and you are leading it with your solutions of clean energy and developing it down to the local level across the continent. So do you think that the complaining have disempowered logic and reason? And if so, what are the practical things that needs to be done? We have 15 minutes to go, but I want you to quickly touch on this, and I go to your book. You said something in your book, but before I go to that, maybe you can give perspective here.
Yeah, I'll give one example to answer your question. But you're right. The narrative is just another byproduct issue, but it's not the core issue, right? Because
so what's the core issue?
No, the core issue is a strategy. If you don't, because strategy, if you look at the result, if after 10 years you haven't changed any data point of the 60% not being access to energy, then you have a strategy problem, right? But if you keep implementing the same strategy, expecting a different result, then it doesn't make any sense. So that the core issue is a strategy, and the strategy issue is we have a top to bottom approach. We are looking for foreign companies, international companies, to solve our energy problem, right? But they're not solving it the right way because obviously it's not working yet. What we need to do, and to answer your question, a lot of the money that is spent to this energy crisis and any other crisis, but energy crisis, come from not NGO or organization like USAID and all those GIZ and all those big foreign agencies. The agencies from those countries to so-called support and help Africa to solve key problems. The challenge, and I give, because I've dealt with some of them, so I'm speaking from experience. So when they come with a budget, let's say they come up with a budget with $1 billion, right? They say, okay, we're going to spend $1 billion on energy. Well, the first thing they do is, because that's their taxpayer money, right? Well, I don't want to use name because it might backfire, but let's say an agency from country X, they take some of the taxpayer money, $1 billion to spend on Africa to solve the energy problem. Out of the billion, they say, well, we have to use a company or companies from our country. That's the way they work. So they cannot spend that money directly with a local company. So already that is a big issue, because so what you're doing, you're spending $1 billion with a company from your country to bring a solution that is 9 out of 10 too expensive for the local community, because again, it comes from the West and it's really high tech. I mean, I can show you some of those techs out there.
So Henry, why? Yeah. Okay, this is the point. Why can't Africa use their own resources to solve their own problems? Why should Africa always depend?
Again, mindset. We have terrible leadership. If you don't change the leadership, you can't change anything else, because they're the one who signed those contracts and agreeing this money to be used the way it's going to be used. The first thing they need to do is, no, don't use that money like that. If you're going to bring money in Africa, we're going to disperse the money to our local talents. We know they can solve that problem. We're going to use part of that money for research and development. Do you know that in Africa, there's no African, at least in East and West Africa and Southern, I don't know about North, but there's no African country that has 100% R&D funding on their own. They always have an R&D that is co-founded with a foreign agency that dictate what you can do with that money. So all
Why is
this
it that
stuff
way?
come from leadership.
So why is it okay? You are saying something here that I think the viewers are getting very excited about, and I can see Selum Makati here saying that a good point is saying that let's bring clean energy to our rural communities where we will be killing two birds with one stone, providing clean energy and saving the environment, while at the same time providing a livelihood of the rural folks who, through their enterprises, also provide the much needed revenues for government. A brilliant point there. But before I get to that, you are talking about leadership, but this leadership is people who grew up in the very communities in which we are in. So what is the guarantee that the upbringing in which these young people are growing up in, that when they're given leadership positions, they're going to change? Because the narrative of leadership is that it's only those who are in government, whereas you are showing leadership in your own private enterprise. So what do we need to do to nurture the moral upright that can be the requisite ingredient for people to start solving problems, not to benefit, but solving problems to change community? What do you think can be done to start to nurture that mindset? Because at the moment, we are seeing there's no trust. There is fragmentation. There is, you even see when many young people go to meetings, they want to ask questions, they want to ask specifically to you, they don't even want to put up their hand because they don't want other people to hear their ideas. What would you say?
Yeah, but again, you can't separate leadership and all those. You can only go so far with small local micro initiatives, right? But if you want to solve a major problem, you need support from your leadership. There is no country in the world that have solved their problem with foreign technology. I want to repeat that clearly. There is no country in the world that has solved their problem with foreign technology, right? So when you let's say you develop your own solution, you have a community, you try to solve, you're right, all those problems of trust and all those things and all that is a big problem. But if the leader of a country say, hey, today we're gonna use the resources to support talent, and I guarantee the majority will follow, because at the end of the day, you cannot have everybody to follow. But if you get the leader follow, everybody else follow. That's just how it works anywhere else in the world. So to answer your question, leadership is crucial, is key. And we've seen countries with good leadership in Africa that have I mean, Rwanda is a perfect example, that has done a lot of stuff very well. And I'm not promoting because I'm Rwanda. I'm just saying there's other countries that I've seen that are doing well, and there's still issues in Rwanda, but at least overall, they've really understood that, there's some development that has to be done on the local level. And now you see the youth. I mean, I've been here 9 years, right? I've seen the changes. I've seen the mindset, because when your leader believe in you, the youth start changing their mindset. Be like, wow, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can solve this problem. So you cannot separate the two. It has to go, and it has to start from the leader. It's like the head of the household, right? If the head of the household does not believe in his own kids, the kids is doomed. It's doomed.
Absolutely. What you are saying is very, very important, and that means we need to start looking at how we start inspiring young people, especially in every space we are, to make sure that at least they can start to see values. In your book titled My African Dream, One Man's Journey Back, you articulated in this book the misconceptions and the challenges you face, and how you finally rediscover and experience back home. And comparing this with the diaspora, you gave lessons of how you have witnessed a different experience in the West after 17 years abroad, and now 5 years. Now it's 9 years, as you're saying, back home. That the road has not been easy, but what you have found back home is a peace of mind and a better quality of life, true self, and where you truly belong. What do you mean by that? for somebody who's listening and he has been told that there is bread and butter elsewhere, and we see them drowning in the Mediterranean, burying themselves under the sea. And when we are speaking like this, they say, it's because you've been there, and now you're telling them not to go. What would you
I
tell
get that
them?
often. I always when I talk about this, I always get that statement. Oh, because you've been there, you come back now. You want to make me believe that this is not great. So I can only speak for myself. Again, I don't want to sound like the West that this is bad, because that's not the point of this, and this is not true. That's not the point of the narrative. The problem is we always believe the grass is greener somewhere else. That's just how we think. And myself, it was the same thing. I grew up in a time. I grew up in Burundi during the war. Also was in Burundi. And my dream, and all my friends' dream, was to get out of there, to go either in Europe or in America. And our dream was built based on what we saw on TV, what we saw. There was no internet back then, right? So, and I'll tell you another story. When I got to the U.S., the first time I saw homeless people, and I'm not talking about one or two, I saw a bunch of homeless people in the university I went. I called my mom because I didn't know there was poor people in America. So this is the problem. Today is different because you have the internet, you have much bigger access to information, but you still see people trying to go out because they think where they are is worth. The reality is, wherever you go to places where you're not wanted, and that's just the reality is in Europe, we're not wanted. In the US, most of Africans, and if not all, technically we're not wanted. There's a lot of racism, a lot of that. It's even harder for you to build a life there. And I have to also blame our diaspora. A lot of the diaspora that come on vacation in Africa, they like to what they call bling bling, show off and all, where their life back is not that great. So we also have to take some of that blame of trying to create this lifestyle that's not real. But at the end of the day, it's a personal choice. I learned a lot from the US.
I think you have said it. You have said it, Henry, and I'm not cutting you, but I'm just trying to emphasize what you have said that I think is the truth. There's a false narrative and a kind of a bubble that people pretend to be in, which doesn't exist. And that is making our young people think that there is glory somewhere, honey somewhere they're missing out. And I'm really excited that you are debunking this, that you can make it everywhere and anywhere if you focus. And the opportunities are here in the continent. And under the changing climate, clean energy solutions, adding value to agricultural products, investing time to learn and come together in groups is really the big way to go. Now that comes to education. You have eloquently argued, and you have said this, and I'll read what you've said, that you believe that the antidote to poverty is inclusive education and economic opportunities. Is our education in the continent fit for purpose?
Is that a question?
Yes.
I think everybody knows the answer. I think I don't even need to get into that conversation. That's gonna be. I mean, oh my God, we've been so brainwashed for so long that we need to find our own identity on everything. That's really the end of the day. We need to find our own identity on every topic. We need to stop looking outward, outside, for solution and all those things. We need to start, because and I think somebody said it, or maybe I think I read it in one of the comments. I'll give you a perfect example. This global warming happening in the agricultural sector. There's already native solution from Africa to combat global warming. There's a documentary I saw in Burkina Faso. This guy will build a whole forest by himself in a very dry land area. So again, we have to look inward. We need to have leaders that stop looking outside and say, okay, let's nurture our talents. That's part of education. We need to start embrace our local languages. This is a huge problem in Africa. People don't even realize we're raising generation people that don't really even know where they're from, and myself included. I'm not trying to bash anybody. I learned so much about my heritage when I came back than when I was. When we get to the West, we try to be so westernized. We're trying to be part of that we're forgetting who we are. Identity. We need to get back to identity, and that's really a massive, massive job, man. I don't even know. That's
indeed.
Oof.
Identity
Massive,
is very, very important. And you have mentioned
Yeah.
the example of Zai in West Africa, which is an indigenous ecosystem-based adaptation approach that could actually be able to address the food insecurity challenges from a production perspective.
Absolutely. This guy should be promoted everywhere. This solution should be promoted everywhere on all levels. But most people don't even hear about those stuff.
So
that
do you
breaks
think,
my heart.
exactly, do you think then, can we now say our problem is lack of self-belief? Because I can see Paul Kevin is saying here that we cannot separate leaders from the public, for the leaders are from the community and they are not foreign to us. If we narrow down, we get to the house setup, the family. Yes, and I think that's what you also said. So that then means that each and every one of us is part and parcel of the problem. And now that, what I want to get to as we start to run up, and I think is the setup of how people have grown up in the continent, with me included. When we were growing up, the space for ideation and creativity is not really given to young people. Sometimes when you bring up an idea, you are shot down because they say, what is this little one trying to tell us? Do you think that because of that lack of ideation and creativity space, that it has resulted to embracing anything that comes and goes and following narratives without debunking them? And if so, what can we start doing now to reshape this without fear of contradiction?
I wouldn't even say that's the problem. We don't nurture our talent. I can't tell you how many times you hear talented African going poor out, and they get to the West, then they succeed, and then our presidents anywhere in Africa welcome them back as hero. Why that person, man or woman, was not nurtured from Africa, develop their talent from Africa? Because we're terrible at nurturing talent. We don't value talent. We value, and again, it's a mindset. The source of all this is mindset. I mean, I don't know how else to chop it up, but it's the mindset. In America, for example, they know how to nurture talent. When you're very talented, company hire you, they're willing to pay top dollars and all those things. They're willing to fund your ideas because they know they can benefit. We don't have that mindset. In Africa, they're going to see this guy has talent. Oh, he's going to be big, huh? He's going to become this successful. Why him? Why not me? And then they do everything to destroy you just because we haven't got into this mindset where we can win together, instead of destroying, because you don't want that person to be the face of that company, that organization and all. So it's like the crab in a barrel. We're fighting because we believe that there's limited resources. And there is limited resources technically, but there's huge amount of ways to be successful if we talk about economic wise. And we don't have to be fighting to achieve our dream. And until we change that mindset, then, there's going to be that same. I have faith in the next generation, though, because of all this. They see now the world through internet and all those things. So I think that generation will be different than ours, but there's still a lot of work to be done on that level.
For you put it so well, for a young person is watching you from southern Burkina Faso or northern Cameroon or northwestern part of Cameroon or northern Nigeria, southern Nigeria, or in Lesotho, East Lesotho, in East Uganda, or in northern Kenya now. What would you tell that a young person to do differently to chart a better path for him or herself?
The first thing I'll tell that person is you cannot do much by yourself. Stop having this individual mindset, right? You can only achieve greatness and whatever that means to you with, a group. And a group can be 2, 3, doesn't have to be many, but you have to get, a group structure or be part of a group structure that want to achieve something. If you work alone, you're not going to go far. That's what I will tell them, right? And then the second thing I would say is Stop blaming the world for whatever it's happening around you. That's going to be counterproductive, right? You need to accept what God has given you and find ways from there to change your destiny. If you keep blaming the world, nothing will change. But if you keep accepting where you are, that doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to be the same, but you accept and you say, okay, I can change my destiny. Then you will see things happening, and changing. Those are the two key things I would say. Everything else is just detail, strategy, being very persistent, never give up on your dreams and all that. But those are the two core things I will tell any youth today in Africa.
Wonderful. You've said something about this attitude of always thinking that the world is on top of them, that they are collapsing anytime they face a challenge. And I want to get your perspective from my own experience in guiding youth. Most of them don't have the attitude of being teachable. After 6 months, they give up. And one of the reasons is that they do not believe that they're supposed to be guided and they think they know it all. Do you think that lack of real mentorship in the continent is what has made this youth sometimes to fail? And if so, what do you think can be practically done given the fact that we are not teachable?
I'm not sure if you say we are not teachable. It
goes
back to education.
Most people. So this is the point. For example, you are giving ideas here. A lot of people will brush it off. From my own experience, you've taken your 1 hour. Now it's 1 hour 6 minutes part. 1 hour 6 minutes. Your time, which is money, to come and give ideas. A lot of people will not listen. Whereas, if they could have listened and taken these ideas into practical reality, they would succeed. But what I've learned from my own experience in mentoring young people is that after 6 months, it's very rare. Out of almost about 1,000, not up to 10 have taken instruction beyond 6 months. Do you think the problem?
Oh yeah.
What is the problem?
No, the problem is you're not going to save everybody. That's just the reality of things. And you can only save with those who want to listen, pay attention, and learn from those who went to that path and have collected lessons and all and willing to share. Unfortunately, there's two ways to learn in life: the easy way and the hard way. And unfortunately, most of us like to learn the hard way. That's just how it is, and they might come back later on. Unfortunately, I'm the hard way type of guy. My mom used to tell me a bunch of stuff. Don't do this, don't do that. I didn't listen. And, I kept failing and all that other stuff. Finally, when I started listening to people and all, including her, things changed. So, but it's okay. If you don't learn the first time, as long as you're willing later on to come back and relearn, that's okay. You're not going to save everybody at that particular time. But you're planting seed. Every time you educate somebody, every time you share information, you're planting seed to that person, right? And now that person has to water that seed. If that person is not watering that seed is not going to grow. So it's up to that person to water that seed. You cannot save everybody. Your job as a teacher is just to plant that seed to as many people as possible. Whatever they do with that seed, that's up to them. That's up to them, man. I've learned the hard way that you can't save everybody, and it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time.
I think, Henry, you have opened people's hearts today with your words, and I can tell you that what you are saying is reality. And now let me get to this question from David Luganda. He said, "If I am a youth in rural Uganda or Kenya, how can I access the solar kiosk to also provide a solution to my community and make money?"
Yeah, so we work with local partners in different markets we are in. We're not the one who distribute, but send me an email, send me a message on email, and then if you're in Uganda, we do have a partner there. In Kenya, we don't have yet, but we can discuss and see ways to support.
Yes, and David is actually a very active, innovative volunteerism actor. There are a lot of them here. He's been mentored, and he is actually fabricating solar dryers and turning agricultural waste
Oh,
into briquettes,
nice.
and working with the Buganda Kingdom. So he's actually one of those who have listened. And there are a lot of them here. There is Paul Kevin, there is Mohammed here, there are a lot of them. There is Alison Kamara, who are innovative volunteerism, Ibrahim, and many more of them here. So as we run up, Henry, honestly, I wish we could just continue, but we have to. It's so exciting, to be very honest, to get this breath of fresh air that you're spurring here. What would you tell every leader in Africa to do to transform the continent in 5 years?
Man, I'll tell them all your solution to all your problems are within the youth. It's just that simple. What you need to do is listen, pay attention, and bring support to whoever wants to change and bringing solution. Like you said, this youth volunteer developing solar solution and all. There's thousands and thousands of those people across Africa. All they need is an opportunity to prove themselves. All they need is an opportunity to bring solution to their country. Nobody can say, even though there's a lot of people going outside Africa, we all love our continent. We all love our countries. We all love our culture. And so this is nothing. We are very patriotic across Africa, but we just need support from our own government. Without them, there's not much we can do. So start listening, pay attention to the youth, start listening, and bring the support they need. I guarantee you, whatever problem you're facing, not only you'll be reelected, most likely, but on top of that, you will solve most of your problem with the youth of any country.
Wow. Then, now the last question, and we run up. Paul Babu says that how do you self-identify and how do we validate the sources of information that we consume as young people? And I think this is a very important point. They consume very wrong information sometimes, the fake news, as others will call it, and then they believe in wrong things. Oh, you cannot make it because you are in Africa. Then they jump on top of it. Oh, you must go abroad to survive. So how do you answer that question, Henry?
Well, first of all, you have to use a little bit of common sense also, because I've seen also a lot of young people that are not using common sense, just believing everything they read. The second thing is find yourself a mentor. If you're looking for guidance, there's quite a few programs out there that connect mentorship. I mean, I always tell the youth, if you're looking for a platform, first of all, that's a problem with a lot of youth. They go on Facebook, a lot of selfie, and I understand you young and all those things. Instagram, those are platforms of waste of time. If you focus on LinkedIn, for example, this is a professional platform that you'll find a lot more.
Hey guys, did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Focus that bring on value to you. Focus on LinkedIn, guys. Build your profile. I tell the youth all the time: you have no picture on LinkedIn. Nobody knows. This is the ways. We're thinking too local. We're not thinking global, and that's another problem with the African youth. But focus on LinkedIn, look for a mentor. And if you can't find a mentor, start following people that you believe have the right mindset that you're looking for on those social media, especially LinkedIn, and look at their post. I post YouTube videos and all about entrepreneurship and all those stuff. I do it for free. I'm not looking for money. I'm trying to give you as much information based on my experience. So there is the right information out there. You just got to look for it.
Wow. Henry, honestly speaking, I'm going to bring you back again to this show because I think 1 hour is not enough to break down what you've broken down today. And I'm going to replay this show throughout the entire week because I think this is a mentorship program that what you've actually articulated here today, I am sure it's going to help a lot of youth. I can see Alusin Kamara from Freetown in Sierra Leone saying, thanks, Henry. And he said he is going to move to LinkedIn immediately. So that is you see, lives have been changed today. So thank you so much. So what's your last word to everyone who is watching?
No, my last word is very simple. The future is in Africa. right? So stop looking at all the problems. Stop looking at all the negative media and all those things. That's life. That's just how it is. You're gonna have good days. You're gonna have bad days, and most of the time, you're gonna have more bad days than good days. That's just how life is. But stop looking at all this negativity and see where you can fit in all this stuff, and then go for it. Give your whole heart, because you only got one life to live. Don't look back when you're 60, 80 and think, I wish I was doing this and all that. Live the life you live and believe in Africa, because that's where the future is.
Wow, wow, wow. Live the life you want to live and believe in Africa, because that is where the future is. And these are the words of Henry, who have articulated issues like only him could do it, making it very clear that you must participate, you must self-believe, and you must be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Now we come to the end of this show, and thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.
Yo lo 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 lo, ye le 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 le. Yo lo 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 lo, ye le 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 le.
Let's embrace innovative volunteerism. Ah ouais, Zico.
Rise up, rise up.